The world of Dandadan is interesting, isn't it? I mean, we have yokais, aliens, spirit users, and now we've entered the domain of the gods. You see, the prior chapter hinted at the existence of the god of death in the origins of Oxhead. We also have the reveal of Daikokuten in chapter 176 as well. And now we have the Asuras that are somehow connected to Count Saint Germain. So we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the chapter picks up with Seiko finishing off the Ox entity, which causes him to transform into his human form. He then tells her not to kill him and proceeds to apologize for what he has done. She then questioned him about why he attacked her, and he goes on to say that he was contacted by someone else who told him to go to this exact location and attack the woman in glasses. She then ran towards the window hoping to catch this person outside, but it appears that he's no longer there. Though there's this one panel that showed this blurred image which implies that the person is there, but Tatsu doesn't want to reveal that person to us as yet, so we'll see how that one plays out. Now she then goes on to confront the person once again, saying that there was another person, which Paisa assumes to be the one that was controlling the vampires. Now he then goes on to say that he only has a connection to the orchestrator through one of his devices, but he has never seen his face. He also said that the messages are sent to everyone, so there's sometimes overlap with the target. So this guy appears to be some sort of hitman because this doesn't appear to be his first rodeo. Now he then pulled out some of the knives that we've seen Saint Germain use in the past, which Paisa described as the Kozika knives. Now what's interesting about this is that Seiko seems to be confused about why he would possess them and also why he has so many copies, which is a bit weird since not only does he have 3 copies, but he also has a white one and 2 black ones. Now we've seen Saint Germain use these knives in the past, and the black ones allows him to transfer the yokai powers into his sword, which then allows him to use those powers. And even Oxhead himself also used the black ones to try to steal Seiko's powers back in chapter 177. So what exactly is the purpose of the white ones? Well, we have no idea, so we'll have to wait and see, but it's interesting and I think you guys should think about it and maybe you guys can come up with something interesting. We'll see. Now Kashimoto then went on to question Seiko about the knives, and she replied saying, "The Asura. Whoever holds that sword in his hand will continue to kill others until his life runs out. In addition, the Asura could take on the power of the yokai and cut down any master swordsman there was. It was simply too dangerous a blade, so an organization of Magi had it sealed away securely. But 5 years ago, someone stole it, and these are the Kozika of that sword." Oh, and by the way, a Kozika is pretty much a small knife that's a part of a Japanese sword, and it's used for tasks that are too big or too precious for the main blade itself. And as stated by the culprit himself, they were instructed to use them to gather the power of yokais, which is a bit interesting since Seiko isn't a yokai, so that's clearly not the only purpose. But he also goes on to say that the ones who gather a lot of yokai powers will have whatever they wish for come true. And even though Paisa berates him for this, asking if he truly believed that any of his wishes could have come true, they literally name drop the Ichi no Kozuchi in chapter 176, which is otherwise known as the Wishing Mallet, which is a mallet that's able to grant wishes. So it isn't far-fetched that if this thing does actually exist in the world of Dandadan, and that's what they want to use to wish Momo back to human size, I wouldn't be surprised if this person did indeed possess the Wishing Mallet, and that's how he's able to do this. But of course, we'll see. But yeah, the guy then goes into his backstory as to why he worked with this entity, and goes on to say that his wife only has 1 year left to live, and this then led to him delving into his issues with anxiety and also his issues with getting women in general. And his wife was the first one who really gave him the time to express himself fully, and that's why he has this deep connection to her and really wants to save her life. So that's why he's pretty much doing what he's doing. Though what is interesting about this is that he goes on to say that a person at work introduced him to the orchestrator, but he can't remember who that person is. In fact, it's as if that person never existed, even though based on his memories, they worked together for a very long time. And that's when the chapter shows us this panel of Mr. Saint Germain. Now, this is really interesting because it's implying that the person behind all of this is of course Saint Germain, which I don't think is the case because that would be way too obvious, of course, but also it could be the case, but not in the way that you think. You see, there's this popular theory that Saint Germain and Saint Germain isn't the same person, but instead they're twin brothers. And this also somewhat links back to the Asuras who Seiko name dropped. You see, Asuras are a class of beings in Indian religions. They're described as power-seeking beings related to the more benevolent Devas, also known as Shuras, in Hinduism. And this is really important because in some medieval works of Indian literature, Devas are also referred to as Suras, and contrast with their equally powerful but malevolent half-brothers referred to as the Asuras. So if the deities known as the Asuras also existed in the world of Dandadan and the sword is based on them, it could also be the case that Saint Germain and Saint Germain are half brothers, and one of them is an Asura and the other one is a Deva. Though of course this doesn't need to be a one-to-one adaptation, because they could just be simply half brothers from different parents and not necessarily Devas and Asuras. So we'll see how that one plays out. By the way, there are different interpretations of these entities in the text itself. Sometimes the Asuras are somewhat linked to Indra, the god of the Devas, from Hindu mythology. They all stem from a precursor being known as Brahma. He created several mind-born children, one of them called Mariachi, who then had a son called Kashyap. Now Kashyap had three wives known as Danu, Diti, and Aditi. Diti represented the earth itself, and their children were called the Daityas. Danu represented water, and her children were called the Danavas. The Daityas and Danavas resided on earth and were part of the first stage of creation. Together they were called the Asuras, the gods of the primordial world. Now the third wife of Kashyap, called Aditi, is the opposite of Diti. She represented the limitless skies and the earliest sky goddess of the Hindu family. Now her children that were called the Adityas are celestial gods, also known as the Devas. But then the sky was laying upon the earth and they stayed in their respective locations. But during the second stage of creation, Indra, the king of the Devas and the god of thunder, propped up the sky, and in doing so created the duality of heaven and earth. After this, the upper world became that of the Devas and the underworld became that of the Asuras. Now, according to the Rig Veda, which is pretty much an ancient canonical collection of Hindu texts, Asura started to have a negative connotation in later scriptures, and that's when a new word known as Shura was used to express the opposite of that. Where Asuras became the personification of evil and darkness, Suras became the personification of light and divinity. Also, Asuras are spirits depicted as power-hungry and lustful. Their skin is dark red or blue-green, 46 arms and 3 heads pointed in different directions, although not every Asura displayed those exact features. Now, in some translations, Asuras can also be a person who identifies with one's physical self and only runs after physical pleasure. So as you can see, there are different interpretations of these entities, and you guys can do more research and decide which one you want to go with. I'm just presenting the information I found regarding them. Now, the same teacher then asked Saint Germain if he wanted to go to the singles mixer, which he agreed to. It also shows on his computer screen that he was watching a video that said the name basketball originated from the fact that a peach basket was originally used for the goal. This of course somewhat links back to Momo because her name literally translates to peach, and it also links back to the story of Momotaro, which is of course the Peach Boy. So if you guys want to get the full explanation of that and why it explains why Momo has the power she does and whether she's half alien or full alien, go ahead and watch the video on screen after this one. Now we then switch over to a policeman, which is Zuma's adoptive father, questioning the workers about what happened in the restaurant. And they go on to accurately describe the people involved, and apparently Seiko and the other guys left the Oxhead guy to take the blame for what happened, which of course they should do because he should be held accountable for his actions. We then see that Seiko, Kashimoto, and Paise are still nearby. She then goes on to tell them that she needs to handle the situation with Momo first, and they should keep investigating. Now that is when the officer shows up and tells them that they match the description of the people that were upstairs. So I'd like to ask them a few questions. But just as he looked up, everyone was gone, and that's where the chapter ends. So I think we're gonna get a perspective shift back to the main characters since this mini Seiko arc is over for now. I do find the entire connection between Saint Germain, the knives, and the Asuras very interesting, and I do wonder if the author is trying to mislead the audience, because this seems like a classic case of misdirection where he wants you to believe that this is indeed Saint Germain when it really isn't, because that would be way too easy and way too simple. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens. But of course you guys can leave your theories down below and we can discuss them, and also drop a like if you like the video and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.